Did you ever wonder what the future holds? What changes are occurring now that will impact our lives and our world tomorrow? And more importantly, who are starting all these changes? Hi everyone, I am Elena Bou and this is Join the Curious. A series of inspiring talks for challenging minds where we will explore innovation and sustainability alongside the most prominent pioneers from different fields, including academia, politics, research, technology and business. Why don't you join us? Good afternoon. Taking the opportunity that we are here in Berlin in the TBB 2021. So we have here two of our great entrepreneurs and innovators that you have a great challenge in your hands because you are trying to make the Hyperloop a reality. So for the first questions to Luis and Tim, what is the Hyperloop?
Yeah, so you can see Hyperloop as sort of a network of low-pressure tubes or vehicles traveling inside. And because there is almost no air, you can achieve very high speeds, actually up to 1,000 kilometers an hour, but for very limited energy usage. It's actually 1/10 of the energy that an airplane uses nowadays. And yeah, basically you could travel over a whole network as if it is one sustainable metropolis. You could travel over a whole continent as if it is one sustainable metropolis. So imagine we're now in Berlin, you could go to Amsterdam, Paris, even Valencia, just in minutes instead of the hours that it takes now.
Mm-hmm. So, and Luis, from your side, how you would define this Hyperloop so that everybody can understand and can imagine how their lives are going to change?
Probably from the passenger experience, there will be a combination between an airplane and also a train, but taking the comfort of a train. And in the end, it will be, this is a system that is built from scratch, focused on the passenger. So basically, all the motivations, all the aims, from the passenger in order to have a great experience that will be incorporated. Because we are not building based on a legacy, we are not building based on what an aircraft or a train used to be. This is something built from scratch. And we have a great opportunity as Hyperloop developers to really put the passenger into the center, and build everything around them. So it will be a great experience. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm pretty sure that once you travel first time with a Hyperloop, it will be really hard to really go back to the airplane, or even a train in some cases, and feel the same. So we are basically taking, a big step in terms of how passengers move worldwide, and it will be massive. Once there's an opportunity of having a real scale passenger Hyperloop viable, then we are pretty sure that all the regions, will start requesting this system because it's amazing the way we are conceptualizing it and the way we will deliver in the next decade.
It sounds really fascinating, but then you have been talking about trains. You have been talking about airplanes. Is the Hyperloop going to substitute these other ways of mobility?
In our point of view, it's much more an addition towards the already existing modalities. And so now we have cars, trains and airplanes. You can see Hyperloop as the next mode that can be very easily implemented besides what's already there. So just imagine a road or a railway. You just put some columns next to it with the Hyperloop tube on top, and then you're basically already done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And even some of we can say the incumbents or the traditional modes of transportation, such as aviation or rail, they behave really good for certain distances. The reality is, for instance, even for the high-speed rail, less than 6% of the passenger trips currently that are happening in Europe are carried out by rail. So most part of international mobility, for passenger is held by aviation. So we can say that having a tool, a technology that can develop such a great technology up to 1,000 kilometers per hour will basically allow you to connect by land cities. For instance, in Europe, almost all Europe can be covered with a Hyperloop grid and network, and that will definitely bring a lot of comfort to passengers and will shift basically the way we move. And the reality for aircraft, for instance, for the aviation, is that airplanes are a great technology, and they are advancing unbelievably well. They have this pain of that they are pollutant and the CO2 footprint that they have, but the reality is that beyond 2,000 kilometers, they are almost unbeatable. So the CO2 footprint per passenger and per kilometer is so efficient. However, when they need to cover routes that are 200, 300, 400 kilometers, that sometimes they are pushed to do that. When you got an island, you have no option. But when you have in the inland, in Central Europe, you definitely can switch that. You can shift into another modes of transport, in this case Hyperloop, why not, that can achieve a greater efficiencies for the passengers, for the comfort, and also for the CO2 footprint.
Fantastic. Tim, one question, because I think one of the clear messages that you are conveying is that traveling by Hyperloop is going to be fast, okay? And suddenly I'm trying to imagine these passengers in a tube, because you say traveling in a tube, how this could be a bit claustrophobic, or at least that we are a bit strange for people to use this kind of transportation. How you are going to manage that challenge?
I can imagine that that's your initial thought about it, but actually the travel with Hyperloop is very smooth and comfortable. In essence, it's actually a much safer system compared to aviation or trains, because due to the tube, you're in a very controlled environment. So any outside effects such as wind, rain, snow, thunderstorms, birds in your engine, that's not the case at all. So in the essence, it's just a very safe system. If you step in the Hyperloop, you will be brought up to speed with the same acceleration as you currently have in a train, but without all the shaking of the wheels on the track or the noise by the engines of the airplane. So therefore a very smooth acceleration. And when you are at your top speed of 1,000 kilometers an hour, you barely notice. It's the same as in an airplane. You go quite fast, but you don't notice the speed actually. So very smooth and stable ride. And then you decelerate, you arrive at a station, you easily step out. You're already directly in the city center. There is no taxiing towards your gate that can also take up to half an hour, or walking through the airport before you can take a taxi to go to the city. You're directly there, so a very smooth passenger experience.
It sounds more smooth and convenient for the moment. So, Luis, how we solve that?
We solve that.
Do you think that we are going to be a bit claustrophobic in the tube? Or?
In the end, we are humans. We are humans, and there are some, we can say, more safety-related factors. For instance, the acceleration of Hyperloop. It's not that relevant, the technology that you develop. What is relevant is the comfort of the passenger. So that acceleration, for instance, today we can say that the most critical one is the metro, because in the metro, when it starts, sometimes you feel, this, and you suffer for the passenger comfort. Okay, so that's the extreme. You cannot go beyond that, because therefore, if you do that, it will be just non-convenient, and it will be even harder to be certified. So we must go. It's part of our philosophy design as Hyperloop developers to really bring this smooth transition for the passenger, so they can hardly feel that they are departing or reaching the station. And also there are many things and tools, technology that we have today related to, for instance, some blended, for instance, TV or media panels that you can simulate basically the transition up on the selection, based on the selection of each passenger. You can even select what type of image you want to have. You want to have the ocean, that's great. You want to have a simulation of what you will have outside, what you see outside, if you were, for instance, going with a train. So you have the window and you can see that. And that's something totally focused on the passenger because, as I mentioned, it is the very first time that the passenger is in the middle, in the center. Trains and aircrafts, both of them, they were focused. We can say that there has been a legacy, a transition of a mode of transportation that has evolved. And finally, you find something that is acceptable, but not always is focused on the comfort of the passenger. This time, that will be in our philosophy design from the very beginning. So they will be in a really comfortable.
But this is interesting because, okay, we know that now we are going to travel much faster, okay, safer because with comfort, and even it's going to be like a video game more or less the way that you have explained it. We can have a kind of a simulation, and then you are saying, hey, we are going to put the passenger at the center.
Yeah.
So you are designing. You are creating, both of you, this new way of traveling. So how are you putting the traveler in the center? Have you already asked them what they want? How you introduce, because it is highly technology what you are doing, how you introduce the human dimension in your solutions?
Yeah, so in our case, a part of, we basically are taking the feedback from both aviation and rail operators. So there's a lot of information collected during the last decades about what the passengers really demand for these modes of transportation. The point is that today is really hard to ask someone, to think about Hyperloop and to think what they are they expecting from Hyperloop.
That's
so
it.
Basically, we have like the baseline, and then we grow from them. So that's one of the things, and they're related to the human factors, purely human factors. We have access to some institutes that we cooperate quite closely, that they are, we can say, working. Their science or their field and background of study and development is basically to understand what the humans are expecting from a mode of transport. So it's a matter of incorporating all of these in the essence of this system, and now all those insights are impacting already in our developments. For instance, in the linear motor, saying that for us it's not crucial to have a supersonic acceleration, because even if we have it, we cannot implement it because passengers will not accept it.
Okay.
So imagine that. Now we are, so that's a design criteria that we implement from the day one, saying, hey, how we dimension, because the technology can go far beyond what you can do in terms, for instance, of acceleration, as I was mentioning. But why to have a super acceleration for our system that you can go like these CASA pilots, with this, system that they have, or Formula One pilot, like Fernando Alonso.
This sounds a bit like, you remember when the computers were developed, that, you can have the best computer, but at the end,
Exactly.
sometimes we don't need so much.
Yeah, so the technology can go far beyond the real need of that are brought by the passenger experience, and I'm just bringing here to the table an example, but those are the things that how we can bring to these core technology development some insights coming from the outside.
Tim, one question, because we have been talking about the passenger, but what about goods? What about cargo? Is the Hyperloop also thinking about all those aspects?
It's actually for both, so for both passengers and cargo. And we actually deem cargo as a very likely solution to be used at the first time with Hyperloop. Because cargo has less regulatory hurdles, it has less safety restrictions, so therefore it's easier to implement, test the system, acquire a lot of knowledge and experience, but also build up the trust that's required by the governments, but also the people that will eventually use it, to see that the system is working and that it's all safe, and then scaling up towards passengers. It could also happen, for example, that governments really want to have a passenger route. But then we, of course, also open to make that happen.
No, and that is very important. You are talking about the trust. this is something completely new. You were mentioning, as it is completely new, it is very difficult to ask somebody, what do you expect? Because they have no reference. And at the same time, we need to build trust, because otherwise, this kind of new innovations will not be accepted.
Exactly.
Okay, so I can imagine, because aeroplanes, and then we have airports, okay, and trains, and we have train stations. Hyperloops, okay. What is the infrastructure?
Exactly. You need to have Hyperloop stations, but they can actually be very closely integrated to the already existing train stations or existing airports. And you have the Hyperloop infrastructure, but that's actually much easier to implement if you compare it to a high-speed rail, for example. You need much less ground. You just need some place for the columns where you can put a tube on top. And then you're basically there, or you can implement it underground in much smaller tunnels than the tunnels you would need nowadays for roads or for railways. So it would also save a lot of cost there. And by the convenience of implementation, you can actually also implement a system for lower cost compared to large high-speed rail, for example. And in that sense, besides the additional comfort and speed, from an economical point of view, it's also a very interesting proposition.
But this is a bit like Matrix, when you are talking sometimes, because I think that one of the challenges that you will need is that somehow to have standards in Europe in order to be able, because you are talking about connecting the whole Europe, which is it is where where we are really going to have the benefits of that. So is there any standard out there already? What are the plans?
We can say that in terms of the deployment, you are right, but we will start small but think big always, and that's the idea. In terms of the standards, sure. We are lucky because here in Europe, it was early in 2020 when it was created the first joint technical committee under the umbrella of Sensenelec that will create during the next years the framework, to develop the standard and the regulation that will rule the future implementation of Hyperloop. I would say that here this is one of the benefits of being European and creating this European industry, because we got the vote yes from all the member states to create this umbrella, and actually now, there's also in different countries there are some mirror groups, working towards the creation of this standard. The industry is there, so it's not just the Hyperloop developers are there. So big industrial corporations have joined, also rail operators, some companies also coming from the aviation. What will be the result? We don't know if there will be a European Hyperloop agency, or it will be part of the current European Rail Agency, or in the case of aviation. However, what we know is that Europe has been pioneer on that. Some months afterwards in the States, there was also a mirror effect, or the creation of another group that is also working in that sense. And it's really good because it finally, the first thing is that this group was created upon or after the motivation of the 4 European Hyperloops, to work towards having this ecosystem, in Europe. And now it's very good because we have a space, to talk, to debate, and it's not just among us or the Hyperloop developers with the industry, but with the future buyers, because the European Commission through the DG Move is also represented there in that scheme. And that's great because we have finally a space, to go to share our developments, how we are progressing with the technology development, how we are progressing with the business development, and how we envisage the future of Hyperloop. And definitely we have the right space, and in Europe we can say that we are pioneers on that.
And including the off-takers.
I think what could be nice to add on that, the essence is that it will become one interoperable system. So the route we develop in the Netherlands and it gets built in Spain, if we come towards across France and it connects, that you can travel from the one side to another and you don't need transfers. So with the rail industry, we saw different countries using different track widths, for example. But that causes a lot of hurdles, and it's really difficult in that way to now rewind it and standardize rail to have one interoperable system.
Yeah, but it's what you're saying is very interesting because even if the Hyperloops is a completely new concept, we can learn from the past.
Yes,
and
exactly.
and the same way that we are now facing challenges with the railway, so perhaps this is something to take into account from the scratch, from now.
And that's really the key that you're mentioning it, because now we start with a blank sheet of paper. You know, we can do it right the first time and make sure that it will be developed towards this one interoperable system.
Fantastic. And then one question. You are developing your Hyperloop solutions, Hardt Hyperloop, and we have Zeleros that you are developing also your Hyperloop solutions. And some people could be a bit strange and say, oh, these two are competitors and are just sitting together here, working apparently together because you are meeting in this kind of working together with these standards. How can we explain this kind of situation? Competitors or collaborators?
Yeah. I think in that sense we're all striving towards the same vision, and that's one interconnected Europe on a highly sustainable way. So that's the thing that we're going for, and of course we're always working to find the the smartest way or how to do it the fastest. And I think that's also a lot of fun on where the competition is. But it needs to be one ecosystem. It's definitely not a winner-takes-all market. There will be multiple players, and therefore it's so great to see that there is so much interest in Hyperloop and so many parties arising to take part in that development. That only increases the chance that eventually Hyperloop will be there, and probably much faster than we're now expecting.
Yes, the reality is that, we have a common description of what Hyperloop is, and part of one of the missions of this group that I just mentioned, the Joint Technical Committee 20 Hyperloop, one of the main missions is to start iterating on the definition of Hyperloop. What is Hyperloop and what is not Hyperloop? However, in the end, what we have is a set of companies that are just presenting different ways to solve the technology, because the technology is conceptualized but not solved, until the detail. And the approaches could be slightly different. One's providing different benefits, another benefits in another parts. However, we can say that now we are in a situation that the priority is to push in a more monolithic way, trying to create ecosystem and to create a value chain and all the industry that backs this. Because I would say that neither Hardt nor Zeleros can really traction this entirely alone. This is why we are building ecosystems, and it will be a matter of just demonstrating, iterating, and in the end find what will be the opportunity. Because in the end, as I mentioned, if Hyperloop is a success, that we bet yes it will be, there will be a space and room and market for all of us, even if we need to implement iterations in our preliminary or primitive concepts. However, the opportunity is massive.
In general, Hyperloop is a combination of existing technologies, so magnetic levitation, vacuum, long tubes. That's all nothing new. The challenge is in combining it into one working system, and in that sense, there is still a big challenge in the magnetic levitation system at the very high speeds. So that's something that has not been proven up to the speeds that we're targeting with Hyperloop. So that will require some challenges in terms of the control system, the expected vibrations, how to handle those. But there are no physical limitations that we are heading towards. It just requires thorough and smart engineering to solve those.
In our case, I believe the same. I think we are not breaking any law of physics, with Hyperloop. So the main challenge is the integration of different technologies that have been used for alternative applications, and now we need to build on that. We need to evolve some things from scratch, and the challenge now, I would say, that is more related to the talent, because the point is that in order to solve Hyperloop, you need people from very different backgrounds. From the engineering perspective, but you need to command things related to energy, to batteries, to power electronics, and when you have certain level of specialization, and you say, I know about converters, you know, power electronics, and you know how to do a sort of inverter, a converter, or a battery pack, for instance. I don't know, I think there's a sort of synergic movement, you know, that suddenly you can grow a team, that you command this technology, this specific field. The point is that in order to build my Hyperloop, we can say it's Zeleros Hyperloop, I need to internalize a bunch of different disciplines that are all of them really crazy from the complexity perspective, you know, and as we are building electric vehicle, there's a lot of competence in handpicking, you know, and recruiting this talent. So we are building something new. There are many people that is super motivated of joining once in a lifetime movement like Hyperloop. However, still it is difficult to have this complementarity, you know, to have this canvas of different talents combined, working with this monolithic vision of Hyperloop. That will be the great challenge, you know, to incorporate these different guys, mechanics, electronics, electricity, you know, electromagnetics. Poof, it's so hard.
How large are your teams now?
We're now with around 35 people. We're working together with a lot of partners. So throughout our whole ecosystem, there are between 100 and 150 people working on the Hyperloop developments. So there's a big movement that's going on, but it's also required because Hyperloop is way too big to do it on your own as a single startup. So you need partners, you need more companies, you need other companies also working on Hyperloop to actually make it happen.
Yeah, in our case we are now 40 people at Zeleros. We are supported by a team of 20 engineers from Capgemini, Altran, which is investor of us, and also we are basically leveraging, because from the very beginning we were fully aware that we cannot internalize, we cannot have inside all this talent, all this super specific know-how. So we started working, cooperating with the large corporations and R&D centers in Spain and also at European level. For instance, ArcelorMittal, the companies, R&D centers such as Tiamat in Spain, and basically we are creating this ecosystem, leveraging, you know, super expert know-how that comes from different parts. That for us is just a matter of making shortcuts, you know, and bringing this expertise, and yeah, basically implementing what they know to our project in order to accelerate.
When it's going to be ready?
Our goal is to make that happen before the end of this decade.
I think now from the Hyperloop industry perspective, it is not the reason that there's a sort of common ground of understanding in terms of the deadlines, we can say. But 2030 is the milestone that I think most of us have set internally to have ready the technology. However, there are some externalities, such as when exactly a government will bet on Hyperloop and will decide to start the construction of the Hyperloop infrastructure. That won't last 1 week, okay? So probably it depends on the length of the route. It can go from 6 months to 2 years. And we basically depend on that to really facilitate that this becomes operative.
Yeah, so what is key for the implementation of Hyperloop is public sector leadership. So that governments, but also in this case the European Union, really says, I want to have Hyperloop, and preferably before this date, and provide support on all required aspects. So financing, regulation, permits, that will be of major help. Now we're following the regular processes, but a great statement in that way, that could accelerate the developments even more.
I will just bring that to the table, the need for doing it right now. Because even if you can see Hyperloop as a long-term or a future development, you know, we are developing the future of mobility. The reality is that, you know, for that to be ready, we need actions today. And yeah, and the leadership of an entire industry, you have to gain it by assuming some level of risk. And we are devoting our lives, you know, to this development, as our teams, our partners, our investors, not only, you know, their money also. So many things are now in the table. So we are assuming everything that we can assume, and now from the public administration, I think we are on the right track. The feedback that I have, the flavor, you know, the sense that I got is that we are on the same page. The momentum is great. However, more decisive or more, you know, robust statements on betting in new technologies. Why not creating future unicorns? This is the way.
No, but if there's a very strong vision from Europe that says, like, you know, we want to have all cities connected between, let's say, 3 hours, right? Then you can plan towards that or making that happen. And there is already the vision to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. By doing that, we just cannot fly the way how we do it now. And also with e-fuels, there are still many challenges to solve. So Hyperloop plays a great part in that.
So how it is that suddenly you jump in this train? Well, you jump to this Hyperloop. How was it?
There was actually a much longer process before that at that point, because we as founders of Hardt, we already know each other for 10 years now. We first built electric race cars together, and there we really learned what it is like if you set yourself a goal and you assemble a team around you. That's just really pushing the limit to make it happen. And then we also set up the team to participate in Elon Musk's Hyperloop competition. And we managed to win that with the experience of building the electric race cars and what it is like to manage a large technical team. And we also saw the tremendous amount of progress that we have made, not only on a technical point of view, but also on acquiring partners for helping us to win that competition in just 1 year time. That we thought, well, if we're going to push this forward, this is the right moment to do so. So from that point in time, we started Hardt Hyperloop to make it a commercial success. And that's where we are right now. And I think it's really cool to see that around 5 years ago, we were with the four of us and just at our experience. And now we are a whole established company with a whole European ecosystem around us. That's just tremendous to see. And I personally am very grateful for all the help of all the partners, and in this case also ENNOEnergy, to make that happen. But it needs to start somewhere, and that's where we are heading into now. We also did it together, like with the four of us. We made a decision. There were more people supporting it, so then you give it a go. You're young, you're energetic, and you're trying to make it work, and you're literally work your ass off to make progress and make it happen. And the progress is increasing every day. The momentum is increasing every day. So that's also very grateful that you see this progress.
I had a chance to start, we can say, cooperating with Zeleros and the founding team really early when they founded the company, because they got some support from my corporation, and we can say that after a while I started recognizing patterns on the way they are. That we're really in line with myself, So we can say that this cultural alignment and feeling. And then also by nature, I'm really curious and I like to think big, I'm a pure optimistic. And suddenly, after several years in Madrid working in a corporation, NTT Data, I found that why not to bring all this expertise, into this startup and try to accelerate the path to market, and all this evolution that they had. After 2 years, fully, devoted to Zeleros, I can say that I achieved that I feel really comfortable with the results, and what I expect is that I can continue growing within this company because I'm learning a lot, and I'm hoping to push towards the consecution of our goals, which are so relevant, but at the same time it's an amazing trip, So I'm enjoying the journey.
So here we have 2 dreamers, 2 teams that they are able to mobilize a strategic partnership. You have been able to mobilize investors. You have been able to mobilize a whole ecosystem. You are creating the future, so you are not only dreaming, you are creating the future, and all the success, because it's really great to see such a young people with these dreams to make our lives improve and change for the future. So all the best, and I hope that in 2030 we will be able to come back to Berlin, but by Hyperloop.
We will have fun.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here with us, and stay tuned for the next chapter of Join the Curious, where we will explore another unique topic and the mind behind it. Are you already curious about it?